Welcome to Mind, Mood and Food podcast. I'm Margaret Bell, founder of Naturally Empowered Health, gut health expert, anti-diet coach and author of True Taste. And I'm here with my partner in crime, Adele Derbyshire.
Hello, I am the founder of Find Your Inner Sparkle. I am a yoga teacher and a spiritual teacher, and I help people to reduce anxiety, stress, and overwhelm, and to fall back in love with themselves and gain confidence.
Hello, and today's episode, we're talking about what to do if you're feeling overwhelmed. Flipping heck, I think it's getting to that time of year, and when we're recording this, I need to put this in because it's probably going out a bit later. We've just said we're a month away from Christmas. Oh my
Yeah, I think
God.
this is going out in February.
February,
Christmas will be a distant memory.
And so will all the overwhelm, she hopes. But it is one of those things that we take on so much and then the overwhelm hits, or possibly on the other side of it that we think that we've got to get so much done in the day, and let's be realistic, there's literally only much stuff that you can do. So I believe you have a perfect definition for it, am I right?
Well, I didn't say it was perfect. That's one of the things to talk about actually with overwhelm, perfectionism. That's got to come into it. But hello, by the way. I know we said that before we come on the recording. So, the definition, I just found a definition that you wouldn't normally expect, because when we think of overwhelm, we think about, like you've just said, oh, we've got loads to do and how are we going to get it all done. But the dictionary definition is to bury or drown beneath a huge mass of something, especially water. So obviously to overwhelm, means to cover or completely submerge. But it makes sense, doesn't it? Because I know I've felt like this before, and it did feel like that. So it feels like that kind of like suffocating or tidal wave kind of feeling that you are going to drown, because basically it's a feeling of not being in control, not being able to keep up. So you kind of keep trying to work longer hours or faster, and obviously you get the fight or flight or freeze response kicking in response to this. That's definitely going to happen. And we've addressed that on previous podcasts where we've talked about the dangers of that, because if we live in this state, it's bad for our health, for our nervous system. So if we get into this state where we feel like we just can't keep up, we can't, meet all the demands with our current resources, whether that be our personal time, or if we've got a team and it's spread amongst the team, or whatever that might look like, we feel overwhelmed and fight, flight or freeze. I think what tends to happen is we freeze. And so one of the signs of overwhelm can be procrastination. Because you get so overwhelmed and stressed, and the fight or flight response triggers that stress response, which means that we can't think clearly, because the way that the brain chemistry is, that I think it's the prefrontal cortex shuts down and stuff like that, and all of the blood flow and the oxygen is all sent to the limbs, so that we can run away or fight the problem. Of course, modern day stress, being overwhelmed with the amount of work that we've got to do, means that it's not something that we can actually physically fight. So what we do is then we shut down and we go, and we just do nothing. And that's when we get like burnt out, because we're just like, right, I'm exhausted. I don't know why I feel this tired, but I can't do anything, or I don't know which thing to do first, so I just do nothing.
Yeah. Oh God, I've been there.
Me too.
That feels like it's just like, okay, huge pile of things I'm supposed to do. and don't know where to start, don't know what to start with. To heck with a lot of it.
Mm,
Ugh.
I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm a celebrity, get me out of here.
Definitely. And I'm sure it's something, I know for a fact it's something that a lot of people are getting more and more of, which is
Mm,
it's a sad kind of statistic that there are a lot more people these days that are feeling that overwhelm. And I don't think present times are helping at all, to be fair. But I think it might be just time to reassess and see, obviously we know what the causes are. How can we possibly avoid them? Or what can we do to deal with this feeling?
yeah, so there's lots of things we can do, and I think
Mm,
that's, something to take solace from because sometimes you can feel like you're so on your own when you feel like this. I think what can tend to happen is we can feel weak. We can feel inadequate. We can feel like everyone else has got their shit together, but we haven't. So, like that's how I felt when
yeah,
I was really struggling with it. Didn't really know who to talk to or how to address it because I felt like that, and if I spoke up about it, especially in a work environment,
mm,
then you would be seen as not as good as everyone else. You know, you'd have some
yeah,
kind of black mark against your profile on the HR system that if you wanted to go for any promotion or management or anything like that in the future, well, she's rubbish. She can't cope. She had a bloody meltdown the other month. And
yeah,
you still got that stigma, and it's that mental health stigma. Um, and it's a shame that that still exists. So,
yeah,
because I think a lot of times it's in our head, and I do appreciate that there will be environments where people are less empathetic and less understanding, and I get
mm,
that. So
mm,
definitely, mind how you go and
yeah,
think about who's the best person in the organization if it is an organizational problem you can talk to. So if you don't feel like you can talk to your line manager, for example, maybe you can go to HR, or maybe you could talk to a colleague because sometimes just sharing the problem really really helps,
definitely.
or getting some kind of therapy as well. So talking to somebody outside of that or completely outside of the organization. One of the things that I did was actually talk to my husband about it. Now,
Mm,
sometimes we can just be thinking, oh, they'll just be a nice ear to listen, which is really useful in itself. If you've got somebody that actually will listen to you, that is gold.
yeah,
So don't, discount that, whoever that might be, a friend, parent, colleague,
mm,
HR, counselor, anybody really. And I also offer help with this through my one-to-one yoga coaching, which have helped with the tools of anxiety and overwhelm and stress. So having somebody to talk to, but what he also brought to the table was a different perspective, like a man's perspective, and just giving that other side as well of because he's a manager in his organization, how they would view it. And if you go in with just like moaning, which is what you tend to do when you're feeling so stressed
yeah,
and overwhelmed, you want somebody to save you, you want somebody to you kind of just want that little life jacket or the little ring, going with the
yeah.
water
The
analogy
dinghy
again.
ring.
You just want somebody to throw you that and just pull you out, or to say,
Yeah.
do you know what, you don't have to worry about any of this, you go home and have a lie down and I'll sort it out. It's what you kind of want.
Oh, bless.
But
Yeah,
it
but
doesn't work like that, does it?
no,
So
no.
it was good for him to portray that to me from another point of view while I was kind of like quivering on the sofa, and just giving me some real practical tools to like,
Mm,
go with that masculine practical mindset of, do you know what, right, get everything down on paper. Or what we did was we put it all into an Excel spreadsheet. And this could be personal stuff as well
mm,
as work stuff. So what tends to happen if we're feeling overwhelmed, it's not really one thing or the other. It might be that we're just about managing all our work stuff okay. And
yeah.
we're going, right, I've got this ball in the air, and then we add another ball in and we're dealing with our home life and things. And then sometimes something comes in left field, and it might be that somebody in the family is ill, or that your child starts to play up at school and they're having problems all of a sudden, and you've got this like extra thing to deal with. or it is something to do with work, and then you suddenly become more stressed in your home life. So sometimes we just feel like we've got everything going all right, and then something happens to upset
Yeah.
balance and that equilibrium. So getting everything out of your head and down on paper, like a brain dump,
Huge. It's huge, yeah.
using something like boring, like an Excel spreadsheet, is good because you can have different tabs like personal, home, family, whatever it might be.
Mm.
And so when I'm teaching the subject of overwhelm, I'll always say just get it all down as a first step, because it's not going to help while it's all swimming around in your head and it's just feeling unmanageable. People resist that because some people think, but I don't want to face it. So if I get it all down, it's going to look terrifying. And then,
Mm.
how am I going to feel? But it does help, because if you
Yeah.
can't face it and you can't see what you've got on your plate, how can you hope to sort that out then and put it into categories and prioritize it, learn what to say yes to and what to say no to, which are all the next
Yeah.
steps.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something that I get my clients to do, is to initially have that brain dump to see what is stopping them getting to where they want to be. And once it's down on paper, the logical brain kind of starts kicking in, because it's the emotional side that is, getting rid of everything that's going around in the head. Once that's clear out there, the logical brain can just click in and just, okay, is this logical? Is this just, some of it absolutely ridiculous, of what I'm experiencing here? And how can we start then putting it into something more rational that I can deal with?
Mm,
But I think to start off with, a lot of people think that they're the only one with this.
mm.
Oh my God, no. Believe me, no one has their shit together. No one has everything, completely
No.
together at all. And to think that you've got to have everything together, definitely not. We're human beings. We're not here on this planet to keep on doing, doing, doing. We're here to actually have, a happy, joyful experience.
Yeah, and just doesn't feel like that sometimes, does it? I think,
Mm,
because of the way that our society works, and
yeah.
the grind and the hustle and the 9 to 5 and
Mm,
the material obsession and things like that, it can feel like, we've got to keep doing.
mm,
Um, and also, as I said before, perfectionism comes into this because I think if you are a certain type of person, which I
mm,
feel like we probably will attract on this podcast, Mind, Mood, and Food podcast people are probably recognize themselves in a lot of the traits that we have. And I now recognize myself as being a sensitive person, or a highly sensitive person, actually. I've been doing some
mm,
research about highly sensitive people, and I think she's called Elaine Aron, who's written a book on it years and years ago. And I'm like, oh God, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And if you are sensitive, you will have more of those traits like people pleasing and perfectionism, because you don't want to upset someone, you don't want to have disapproval, you don't want to disappoint anyone. So it pushes and drives you to
yeah.
have that insane voice, that inner critic that is just like cracking the whip all the time. And if you've got that, where somebody else might have done a half-hearted job and thought, it's not that it's rubbish, it's all right, it'll do,
Mm,
then, you might spend 4 times as long on it because it needs to be perfect. And I
mm,
now recognize that in myself, and I recognize the fact that there are gifts in that. What it means is, when I do something, I do a piece of work that there's very little loophole in it. There's very little need for anyone to come and change it very much, because
yeah.
believe me, I would have done my research. I would have crossed every T, dotted every I, and so, you can afford to either rein that in a little bit if you
Mm,
possibly can. It is very difficult for people with these tendencies, and I get that. Or give yourself some grace that it takes you a little bit longer because you're going to do a bloody good job and it's going to be really thorough. So, in which case, you can't compare apples and oranges if somebody's like, well, this should take 2 hours to do, or, such a body did it in this time. well, all right then, if you want them to do it, go and ask them.
Yeah,
Because there's a reason you stood at my desk. It's going to take me
exactly.
4 hours longer, but you know it's going to be a good piece of work. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that I'm any better than anyone else because they get probably larger amounts done, quantity done, and it's just that choice. It's like, but understanding yourself and understanding how you do things and the way that you do things and seeing the gifts in that
Mm.
is super powerful because you then can own who you are and stand your ground with that and defend your position if you like and say, I'm not going to rush it because that's going to make me feel rubbish because then
Yeah.
I've produced a substandard piece of work in my eyes.
Yeah,
So if you want it
absolutely.
doing by me, it's going to take this long. And being confident to kind of renegotiate deadlines with people and to give that explanation, it's because it's going to be good or it's because I'm going to put lots of effort into it, whatever you want. Um, and then also, I've got loads of tips on this, so we won't give them all because we'll be here all day. But also, boundaries is vital.
Yeah.
If you're feeling overwhelmed, you've got to go through a process once you've got your brain dump and everything down on paper. You've got to sort it out because you can't do everything, which is what you just said, Margaret.
Yeah.
You feel like you've got to get everything done, and everything feels like it's got the same importance, but it can't have because we can't do everything all at once. So we've got to be able to sort it out. So I always keep an up-to-date to-do list. I love a pad, I love a pen and paper, but you can use notes, Excel spreadsheets,
Yeah.
whatever you want,
Hmm.
diaries, electronic diaries. I do like now. Never used to, but I do like my electronic diary. Um, and then just sort it out. So look at your list and be like, right, what is actually urgent
Yeah.
and
Mm.
what can wait?
Yeah.
And that's not straightforward in itself because what you think's urgent, sometimes it can be because someone else has told you it's urgent and they want it today.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And that might not be what's in your best interest to
Yeah,
do that today.
definitely. And I think, and I'm going to speak for business owners themselves here. I've basically started to do, okay, what is actually going to be bringing in an income for me here
Mm,
and what isn't?
mm,
What would be nice to do, but doesn't bring me an income, on what actually will bring me in an income. And I think that is just changed my way of thinking, to be quite honest with you. There's some nice things do creep in there that I think, yeah, I'd really like to do that, but it is okay. What is actually going to be bringing me an income here?
really good, yeah.
Hmm.
Like, do they call it IPA, income producing activities? Bit of
Yes.
jargon for the podcasters there. But yeah, if you work for yourself,
Yeah.
as we do, yeah, what are those income producing activities? Because you can get um lost in that rabbit hole, can't you?
Oh,
Like
God,
I
yeah.
think stuff does need doing eventually, doesn't it? Like I'd like to have a lovely website, but that's not
It's not the
essential in the
be all.
beginning. Yeah.
No, it's not the be all and end all. And I think that this thing that you've got to be, I do get out there on social media, but I've reined it back so much
Mm,
over the last few months to just a couple of posts a week. And that seems to be doing the trick because that has got a lot more content in it rather than just thinking, oh, I've got to post every day. Nah.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I've noticed that because I think you talked about you posted something about your group that you close your group down?
Yeah. Yeah, that
Mm,
was another thing. It,
yeah. That
don't.
terrifies me because I'm like, oh, I love my group, but it's something that you do need to think about because
Yeah.
the thing is, I know a lot of people watch and don't always comment, and I
Mm,
know that there is that in my group. But it is difficult when people don't realize how much time goes into
mm,
creating a good post and you're sharing so much value all the time. If you don't get that much back in terms of comments or people buying services, it's
yeah.
like that's not
Ah.
paying your bills. And we were chatting before we came on recording this.
Yeah,
The bloody price of things going up like mad with the heating and the lights and everything else. We've got to pay our bills the same as everybody else. So there is
absolutely.
this danger of you spending so much time on tasks that are not or that shouldn't be a priority, but they feel a priority for X, Y, and Z reasons. So business owners, it's this pressure to keep up with, obviously creating an audience and posting on all the different channels. So there's that, and then there's if you're in a corporate or in your work environment, you're working for somebody else, there's this thing about the loudest voice, most
Oh
senior
yeah,
person or
yeah.
someone that's going to complain more and things like that. But just having that, it feels difficult in the moment because it's like take a bit of extra time planning your list and prioritizing your list. But otherwise, you just dive in and you just spin in, and you don't know when you're doing that task if it's the right task to be doing. And so at the back of your mind, you're still really stressed because you're trying to get it done as fast as you can to get onto the next task. Or worse still, multitasking. So
Oh
you're like in a meeting and you're trying to do something else and do your emails at the same time and you're juggling. So that's another tip. Do one thing at once. And that's something that, again, husband guru imparted on me. And as women, I think we can be really bad for doing this like multitasking where we shouldn't be, where we should be just concentrating. If he's doing something, he's just doing that one thing. He doesn't care that there's 10 other things because he
yeah,
genuinely does just go, well, I can't do that. I'm doing this.
yeah,
You could be shouting and screaming as loud as you want that you want that, that, and that as well. Couldn't
yeah,
give a monkeys. And
yeah,
if it doesn't get done, it doesn't get done because he spent his time doing the thing that he wanted to do in the first place or that he
yeah,
thought was the top of the list, and he's happy with that.
yeah, yeah.
And that really helped me. Like,
It is a bit of a God, an eye opener. I can remember when I was a PA for a couple of years, just to basically fund the start of my business. And it got to the point with some of the people I was dealing with saying, I need this done for them. Because I just physically can't get it done for them.
mm,
When is the absolute deadline that you need that done?
mm,
This day. Okay, I'll have it done for you
yeah,
then.
yeah. Renegotiating deadlines,
Yeah.
absolutely. I have a saying now, deadline schmedlines, because in my head, a deadline meant it literally meant that if my boss said, right, I need this report by Friday,
Mm.
that's been said. So if I didn't get that done by Friday, I thought I was going to die. It was kind of like, because one of the things on my list to share is perspective.
Yeah.
Now, he'd not said that.
No.
He'd never said, if you don't do it by Friday, you're going to, like, it was just some weird translation went on in me
Yeah.
that he wouldn't have known about. Nobody would have known that I took it as that until I
No.
started to realize that I could speak up and I could say, right, I've got three other things on, so I can't do it by Friday, but I can do it by next Friday or a week on Friday, a week on Wednesday, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they go, yeah, that's fine. And you're like, really?
So why
And
put
he
me
was,
through that?
he was one of the once I started to talk, which was one of my first points on this today,
Mm.
about how I felt and that I just needed some support because I struggled with having so much on my
Mm.
plate. And he used to say to me, bless him, like, we're not brain surgeons. And
Yeah.
I'd be sat there going, oh yeah.
Mhm.
And
No one
he'd
is
be like,
no one is gonna snuff it.
nobody's gonna die today if you don't do that report by Friday.
Mm.
We'll just tell them they can't have it till next Friday. It's fine.
Yeah.
And I'd just be like, oh wow. And it sounds ridiculous now, but I can guarantee there'll be somebody listening to this that might be a game changer for.
Mm. Yeah.
That the fact that if somebody says they absolutely, even if they really need it and it's the absolute latest deadline, well, unless you're a heart surgeon and that person needs that transplant
Yeah.
or that operation to remove the, tumor or whatever it is, if you're not in that field of work,
Then it
there
can
is
wait.
room for negotiation. I'm pretty sure of it. And so perspective helped me as well, massively.
Yeah.
It helped me to be able to rejig those priorities. Because if you are a sensitive person, you're an empathetic person, you can care too much. And I care too much about
Mm.
everything that I do. I don't like to let people down. I like people to, get a good job if I'm doing something. So all of that leads to you suffering because you put yourself under way too much pressure. You
Yeah.
try and do everything far too perfect, far too quickly. And like you just said, we are here to have a human experience. What if we're supposed to enjoy life and not just you know,
Yeah.
pay for a house and retire and then
Yeah.
not be well enough to enjoy the retirement because imagine you've lived yourself in fight, flight, or freeze for 40 years, just going
Oh
day
my
after day after
goodness.
day, trying to get it done and get it done. For what?
Yeah.
When we retire, we can't enjoy it because we're bloody not going to be around
Knackered.
because we had a heart attack.
Knackered.
But it's true, isn't
It
it? So
is,
the
absolutely.
perspective is
Yeah.
really is important.
Yeah. Oh, flipping heck.
I know. I feel like this is one where I forgot we were recording, to be honest. Got lost in the moment.
I know. Flipping heck.
I'm passionate about this because I have
Yeah.
been through it as you have,
Yeah.
and it's not nice.
It's not nice at all. That feeling that you're just not coping, not don't know where to start.
Not sleeping,
Not sleeping. And I
Mhm.
can honestly say I was a bloody gibbering wreck.
Yeah.
Literally gibbering. And it was awful.
And it's so unnecessary, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
I literally was. I was like on my knees just wishing and pray. I was praying like for something to help me. And when I look back now and think, I was doing like corporate work for God's sake.
Yeah,
I
same here.
couldn't give a bleep about any of that stuff I was doing. I don't remember what it was, but in the moment it felt so important.
Yeah.
It felt life or death, and you need somebody to kind of bloop, just pull you out of that and
Is
go,
it?
whoa,
Hang on.
let's just
Definitely.
have a look at this for a moment.
Yeah. And I think that's what it's all about, how gaining that perspective,
Mm.
having that brain dump, and then just reprioritizing and just
Yeah, and that's a
bringing
skill.
that logical brain
It's a skill, and a
back
skill
on.
can be learned. It's not
Yeah.
something that you're like, oh, I'm not good at prioritizing. I wasn't born with that. It's just a skill.
Yeah.
And the more you do it, as is boundaries and speaking up for yourself, the better you'll become and the easier it'll become. And it'll just off the tongue. You know, you're not fibbing, you're not having anyone on, you're just like, this is if you get organized, you know what you've got on, you know what's your priority, you know what you need to do today, and
Yeah.
everything else has to wait. You know, it's like a triage service at the A&E department in the hospital. As
Perfect.
people come in, they've either got to trump something that you're doing or it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Perfect. Triage. Yeah.
Triage your
Definitely
life.
think of it right. Triage your life.
That
Thank you very much.
should be the name of the podcast. We might change the name of this to Triage Your Life instead of
Triage your
How to Get
life.
Out of
That
Overwhelm.
sounds a bit better. That sounds a bit better. That'll get people inquisitive.
It will,
Definitely.
yeah. Like, what on earth is that?
Thank you, Adele. That was we went a bit in depth there.
Yeah, a lot of information. Probably overwhelmed people just listening to it, to be honest.
If you like this podcast, let us know, please. Subscribe, comment, let us know on social media, wherever. Just let us know if you do like us, or if there's anything that you'd like us to cover, then please let us know, because we're always out there looking for new subjects that you're interested in. So yeah, thank you very much, Adele, and
No
see
problem.
you next week.
See you next time.
Bye.